So now we were able to add this calendar. We can actually select the days that we want to book. Okay, I want us to move on to the next step where we can talk about money and payment and so on. And for that, we will be making use of Stripe. Okay, so Stripe is like very easy to use. And what you need to do is to create an account at stripe.com. Then you'll go to dashboard and you'll actually go to the developers right here. Okay, so if you come right here at API keys, you will need to have this publishable key and the secret key in our project. So copy this publishable key. You can just click it and I think it will copy. Then in our project, go to your file explorer and go to the .env file. And right here, we will add next, then underscore, public underscore again, and I'll say stripe underscore publishable key underscore key. So this means that it can be accessed publicly. You set it to be equal to, you paste, so it should start with pk, and this is in one line. It's just that the key is too long and it showed like it's on a different line. I'll hit enter, and we'll also have a stripe underscore secret underscore key, and we'll set that to be equal to something. So we come back here. You can reveal the key and copy it. Don't use mine. So I'll go ahead and paste that key. This is the secret key. This is the public key. So go ahead and save. We will go back to our room card, and we actually need to add a button here that will make the booking. So make sure you are right here after breakfast, after total price. So after this div of the total price, we will be adding a button just like that. So is loading right here. Actually, we can set up its own, like booking is loading. So right here, booking is loading. We can set booking is loading. Now we go back. Right here, we'll now perform a check of booking is loading, and if it's loading, we will show a loader. So I'll say loader 2 from Lucid React, else we will show a wand 2 from Lucid React. We will include the class name here of margin to the right of 2. Then we will have height of 4 and a width of 4. I will copy that class name and I will use it again right here. So this is the first check. We will perform another check and we'll say booking is loading, and right here, if that is true, we will say loading, else right here we will say book room. Now if I save, we should have this button, and if I scroll down, look, we have this book room. It looks nice. It's a wand. When we click it and the process is happening, then it will change to a loader. Okay, very nice. Let's come back, and right here we will be having several props. Like we will disable that button. So disabled if booking is loading. I'll set this to be of type button, like that, small b. And another thing is that we will be having an onClick event. So this onClick event will pass an arrow function, and we will be calling a function right here that will actually process our booking. So for now, let us leave it as pending and we will come back later on. The next thing that we can do is to create a payment intent API. So inside our app, we will go to API, and inside the API we will create a new folder, and right here I'll say create hyphen payment hyphen intent, and inside this folder I'll create a new file and I'll call it route.ts, and we get in here. Now let's work on this particular API. The first thing that we need to do is to bring in Stripe from Stripe, but we don't have Stripe installed, so I think we should look at that. So we just need to run this command. Okay, so npm install Stripe, very easy. Right here we will install Stripe like that, and once we install it, at the top here we will be able to import Stripe from, and right here I'll say Stripe. Then right here we'll say const Stripe will be equal to new Stripe of whatever we imported now, like that. We say it's equals to this new Stripe. Then right here we will invoke. Here we will pass the secret key. So I'll say process dot env, then dot stripe underscore secret underscore key. So this will read the key from our environment variable. So you need to make sure that this right here, this spelling right there, is the same as what we included at our environment variable, stripe secret key. So you can actually copy this value and paste it here just to make sure that they are the same, otherwise you might have some issues. Now right here I'll say let's bring that in as a string, okay, like that, and we can pass a second parameter right here optionally, and we will have the API version, and right here you can include the API version. You can see I get a suggestion, this is like the latest version. And if you go to the Stripe dashboard and you go to overview, I think we had something to do with the version, and you can see we have the API versions right here. So this is the latest. I believe that is what I have used right here. Okay, very nice. So you can include that. Now we have this Stripe object that we can work with. Okay, now right here we will create the function. We'll say export async function, and we will be performing a post request to this API. So we will have a request, and this will be of type request. Then in here we'll get the user, so we'll say const user will be equal to, we will await current user, and this will come from Clerk Next.js. So we get our user there. We will perform a check, do we have this user? So if we don't have the user, we will return new next response, that will come from next server, and we invoke that. Here we say unauthorized, and here we can include a status code of 401, meaning unauthorized. Okay, we get the content of our body from the request object, so we'll say const body will be equal to, we await our request.json, and we invoke that. Okay, so at the body is where we'll be passing the booking data, we'll be passing the payment intent from the client. So right here we can extract those. So here we will be receiving the booking data, which I will call booking, and we'll have a payment intent. So payment underscore intent underscore ID, and we'll set that to be equal to our body. So basically we are extracting booking data and the payment intent ID from our body. So right here I'll prepare an object for our booking data. So I'll say booking data will be equal to, we will spread the booking data. So I'll spread booking, and then right here I'll pass the username of the person who is trying to pay for this, and that will be available at user.firstname. I'll have user ID, and I'll say user.id, like that. I'll have the currency, and here I'll say the currency is USD. Payment intent ID will be payment intent ID. So I think another important thing that we can actually include in the booking data is the email, right? Because what if we wanted to reach out to this person? Where do we get the contact info? We can say the email user dot, do we have email here? Email address. Not sure if it is having anything, but if we do this, we should also change our Prisma, our schema, because before I had not included that. So if you check at the booking right here, we have the booking data, which will include something like the start date, end date, things like hotel owner ID, hotel ID, room ID. Then we added the payment intent ID here. So we can also include the user email to be the string. It's just an addition, which I think is a nice one. And here we change this to user email, since I used user email there. User email. The thing is, we need to now say npx prisma generate, so that the types are in sync, and also npx prisma db push. So I think actually that will throw an error since our application is running. So you can stop the application using Ctrl+C and use now npx prisma db push. Okay, not push, but npx prisma generate, and right here npx prisma db push. So we pushed that, and now the types will be in sync when we try to create it. So now right here I'll create a variable. I'll say let found booking. So we will be checking if we have a booking using the payment intent. So right here I'll create a variable found booking, which will store that booking if it's already there. So right here I'll first perform a check. Do we have a payment intent ID? So this payment intent right here can come in as an ID, or that is a string, or it can be null. Okay, so remember at our hooks use book room, we said that the payment intent here can either be a string or null. So we will see if it's there or not. So if it's there, we will attempt to fetch a booking from our database. So we'll say here found booking will be equal to, we will await prisma db. So we use prisma db dot booking like that dot find first, or dot find unique. So we find unique here, and we'll say where we pass an object, we say payment intent ID is our payment intent ID, and user ID is user.id. Here we will have this found booking being updated at our variable. Now right here we'll perform a check, now using both the found booking and the payment intent ID. So do we have both a booking and a payment intent ID? So if we do, we will do something right here. If we don't have, we will do something else right here. So I'll say else. So what we will do right here is to update Stripe payment and also update the booking using this booking data. So this will be updating our booking, update. Okay, but here we will be creating a new one. Okay, so we will start by creating a payment intent. Since we don't have a payment intent, we don't have a booking, so we start by creating a payment intent. So I'll say const payment intent will be equal to, we await, we use Stripe object dot payment intents, then dot create, and we invoke that, we pass an object. Right here we will specify the amount that we want to pay, and that will be our booking data dot total price, and we will be multiplying these by 100 because Stripe stores the value in cents. So we multiply by 100, we say comma, we will say the currency here is our booking data dot currency. I'll say automatic payment methods will say enabled to be true. So this will give us some payment methods which we can use. So we create that payment intent. We will update our payment intent ID. So this is the ID. Remember, this is an intent. It have a lot of information, but this here is an ID. So we will take our booking data and we will update our payment intent ID, which can be null or it can have a value. So right here, booking data dot payment intent ID will be equal to payment intent, this one now, dot ID. We can go ahead and we create a booking in our database. So right here we'll say await PrismaDB and we'll say dot booking and we'll say dot create and we will invoke that. And right here we will go ahead and we pass the data as our booking data. Okay, and now by doing this, we have created a payment intent at Stripe and we have created a booking in our database, which is cool. And right here I'll also add a return statement and we will return next response dot JSON, and what we will return is the payment intent. So we get the payment intent from this API call. Okay, so we will return the payment intent, which is this one. Remember, it's not the ID we are returning, but we are returning the payment intent, which will actually have a lot of other details about our payment. Before you close right here, we will add a default response, which is actually an error. So we'll return a new next response. We will invoke that and we'll say internal server error. And right here we can have a status code of 500. So status of 500. Okay, this is a default return statement in case all these if statements fails. In case all these if statements fails, we should have a return, a default return from this API. So by that we have created an endpoint that will actually create a payment intent and a booking in our database. And later on we'll come right here and we will work on this update right here, and I'll show you the reason why we need it. So the next thing is to make a call to this particular API. So I'll go to room card. Right here we had left this as blank. So now it's time to create that function, and I'll call the function handle book room. We'll invoke it like that. It does not exist, so I'll copy that and I'll scroll to the top here, and right here we will create that function const, call it handle book room to be equal to an arrow function, just like this. We will be performing a check right here. We will check if a user is already logged in. Okay, so do we have a user ID or not? So if we don't have user ID, we will return a toast error message. Okay, so now this user ID complaints. The thing is, we can get that user ID right here. We will say const, we will destructure user ID, and this will come from use auth, okay, from Clerk Next.js, and we invoke it. Clerk provides us with this hook where we get the user ID. So before we make the HTTP request, we make sure that we have a user. Very nice. So we'll say if hotel dot user ID does not exist, we will return right here a toast. So we should have like this user ID. The hotel data have the user ID. This error will rarely happen, but we are just adding the check so that when we are passing the data, it doesn't complain that the user ID might not exist. Okay, so now right here I'll check if the dates are actually there. So I'll check, do we have date.from, and do we have date.to? If we don't have one of those, that means that the user have not selected the date. They are trying to click book button and the dates are not there. So here I'll say else, and right here we can toast. I save. Okay, but right here is where we'll now make our HTTP request. Set booking is loading, and then right here we will prepare our booking data again. So I'll say booking room data, and the reason for this, we have end date and start date, or you can have check-in and check-out instead of date.from and date.to. And also we want to add this booking data to our global state. Okay, the data that we are preparing here should be having the values that we'll be having here. So we have room, total price, breakfast included. We need to have start date and end date. So this is in our Zustand hook, which is our global state. Okay, and then we will have the payment intent. We will have the client secret when updating this data as well. So right here I'll have start date like that to be date dot from, and date to be date dot to. Here include a comma. Okay, so this is our booking room data, which is of this type, room data type. Okay, therefore now that we have that data, we can update this state right here by calling set room data. We pass that data and it will actually update it. So right here we'll set room data. We will invoke that and we will pass our booking room data. These should complain, of course, because we haven't called our use book room. So at the very top, I can do it right here. I'll say const. We will destructure the functions there, and we set these to be use book room from hooks, use book room. I invoke that, and right here we will call our set room data. We will also be having payment intent. We'll also be having set client secret, and we'll also be having set payment intent from that hook. So you can see now how everything is starting to work together here. So once we prepare this data, we set it to state, and also we will be sending this data to our backend API. So right here, I will now make a call to our backend API, and I'll make use of fetch. You can also make use of Axios if you want to. Let us use fetch so that you see how it's used here. I'll say fetch, and here stroke API stroke create hyphen payment hyphen intent. So make sure this one right here is the same name that you used at app API this folder. The name is the same as the name of this folder. That is our API endpoint, and that will make a call to our route. Okay, so that route expects us to pass some data, and right here I'll pass this object. We need to specify the method, which is post request post. I'll pass headers, and I'll specify that we are passing JSON data. I'll say content type out here full colon is application stroke JSON. Basically, we specify the type of content we are passing to the backend. Then right here we specify the body. I'll call JSON.stringify, and we pass the data right here now as a JSON string. So this data right here is the one that will be saved in our database, and this right here will be used to manage our payment and generally our booking data. If we leave the page and we try to go to our bookings and perform the payment, we'll be getting the data from our global state. Right here, we will include the breakfast price. So breakfast included to be our include breakfast. Then right here I'll have the total price as the total price. So our backend API, this one here, expects us to pass the booking data and also expects us to pass the payment intent ID. And now right here, this is the booking. Then after the booking, still inside this object, we should include a comma and we pass the payment underscore intent underscore ID to be our payment intent. Now this data will be received by our API here. We will spread it and we will expand the data using the user first name, user email address. Here it says addresses because I think it will show in an array. So I think we should get only the first one. Okay, like that. Then we'll have the ID, the currency, and now all these, the data that will be here, will reflect our schema data. Okay, we'll reflect everything right here, and we will now use that data to create our booking. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. So this is our fetch request. If it's successful, right here, we will say dot then. We invoke this, we pass an arrow function, and we'll do something right here. Here we will be having a response, which will be in form of a JSON string. So we can convert that response into a JSON object or something like that. So right here, we'll first set booking is loading to false. Okay, then right here, we'll check our response status. So res.status, and we'll check if it's 4:1. 4:1, and if it's 4:1, it means that this user was not logged in. So what I can do, I can return router here dot push to the login page. Then right here, I will return res.json. This will now return our data in form of an object instead of JSON. So right here, I'll call .then again. We'll now have access to our data, and I pass an arrow function again. Here, we will set the client secret. The client secret will be available at our data dot payment intent. So payment intent. Then right here, dot client secret. Now right here, we'll also set the payment intent ID. So we'll set the payment intent. This will be our ID actually. So I think we should have set payment intent ID because right here we said payment intent, which should actually be payment intent ID as well. So I think we should fix that for a better naming. This is ID. This one will be ID. This will be set payment intent ID. Here we will receive payment intent ID. We will set payment intent ID. This will be set payment intent ID. Here we will receive payment intent ID. So basically change all payment intent to payment intent ID. Even here, payment intent ID. Just like that, I save that, and now right here it will make more sense if we say set payment intent ID, and again from here this will be payment intent ID, this one will be payment intent ID. So let's come back again, this one will be payment intent ID. So this is the problem of making a mess at one place. So right here now we'll set our data to be data dot payment intent dot ID. So this will update our state here, which will be available globally. Okay, very nice. Now right here I will call router.push after we successfully do this, and we'll take the user to another route called book room, and this is where they'll actually complete the payment. Remember, this will create the payment intent, but they haven't paid yet, so it will create the booking and the payment intent, and then they'll take the user to this page where now they will actually process the payment, where they'll actually pay, and then the payment status will be marked as paid. Remember, by default the payment status here will be false. Okay, so Rust tree here I'll have .catch. Okay, if we get an error, we return that these complaints. I think we can say error is of type any. And I save. So now that is our API request. We make a request to create payment intent, method, post, headers, content type, application JSON. We pass the body, we stringify the body, and we pass an object which will have booking and payment intent ID. Booking will have all these: hotel owner ID, hotel ID, room ID, start, end date, booking, breakfast, included value, and total price. We will receive those values at our route. Once we receive them at our route, we will spread the booking, and then we will extend our booking data with the username, user email, user ID. We'll pass currency, and also we will have the payment intent ID, and then we'll use this booking data right here to create a booking just like that. Very nice. So I hope it makes sense now. And once this process is successful, when we initially create a payment intent, we will be redirected to this book room, where we will have now the Stripe form to process the payment. And we can actually create that page at app, then add a new folder, and you can say book -room, enter. In this page we'll have page.tsx, status functional component, and we will say here book room. Here we will show a summary of the booking, and we'll also show some Stripe forms. So here we will be coming back and working on this one. First, we need to see if we are able to create a payment intent. So here I can say book room, just like that, and I save that. Okay, now let's test this. Our application is not running, and I come to this npm run dev, and right here I will refresh. Okay, the app was not running, so that's why it was failing. Let's book room, and oops, select date. So it will give us an error if we don't select a date. So let's select maybe from 26 to 30, and if I now say book room, it's loading, and let's see, it actually gave us an error. Argument of user email invalid value, expected string provided object. So it's our email. So we have email addresses, so we take the first one, dot email address. Okay, so we should say user dot email addresses. We take the first one, and right here we say dot email address. So that is the correct way of doing that. Let's try this again. We can manipulate this. We include breakfast 560 now. Let's book room. It's loading, and once it completes, it takes us to book room. But now at our Stripe, if we check, you'll see we have another one now. Let's see. Look, it have this payment intent, which is 560. Very nice. Another thing that we have done is that we have created one booking now. So if we come here, booking should update to 1. Should we refresh this page? Okay, our Prisma Studio is not running. Let's run it to confirm. npx Prisma Studio, and we hit enter, and that will run our Prisma Studio. So let's refresh it here, and we should have one booking at least. And look, we have one booking. So let's explore it. We go to that booking, and look, we have the username, the person who is like booking right there. We have the email of that person who is booking right there in case we want to reach out to them. We have the user ID, room ID, hotel ID. We have the hotel owner ID. So this is the person who owns the hotel. Unfortunately, we are also the one who owns the hotel. So we are making a booking to our own hotel. We have the start date, the end date. We have breakfast included as true, currency as USD. We have total price as 560. We have the payment intent ID and booked at like that. So we have everything that we need in this booking, okay, which is very awesome. So yeah, this is great. We have now successfully created a booking, although it is not paid. So payment status for this booking should be false. So payment status here is false. And once we process the payment right here using the Stripe form, that payment status will be marked as paid, and at our Stripe, this will be marked as success as well, which is awesome. Now, another thing that happened is that this use book room, the state is now available globally, and it also stored it in our local storage. So basically, if we go to our local storage, we can do this from the browser. Click here, go to application, then you come to local storage, and from the local storage, I think something is missing. Okay, I'll minimize this one, and look, we have this book room, and if I expand this, you'll see here we have the state, and if I expand that, we have all this data here. Okay, we have the payment intent ID. Okay, this is still there, although we removed it. I think it had already been saved in the local storage. We have the client secret right there. Also, we have the booking room data. So in this booking room data, we have breakfast included. We have the room that we are trying to book, the end date, and the start date, the total price. Now, the importance of this booking room data is for us to actually work with this form here. So even if we refresh, we'll still have it right here, and we'll be able to process the payment. We'll be able to get the order or the booking using this payment intent ID. We'll also be able to get the payment intent from Stripe using this ID. We'll be able to have this client secret there, and we'll be able to process the payment. Even if we like left this page, or if we refreshed, we'll be able to have it right there. And that is why we needed to have that global state. So next, let's work on this form where we'll actually complete the payment.